Think that what, or how old do you think you
¿Cuántos
were?
años tenía yo ahí? ¿2, 3?
Pues 3 años,
What?
yo creo.
¿3? 1956?
No. 3. ¿Quieres?
So what's your name?
What's my name?
What's
My name is, well, official name is Rodolfo Sanchez Romo.
Okay.
But here in America, in the US, I've been going by Rudy since I got here in 1969. I grew up in a small little town called Encarnacion de Diaz in the state of Jalisco in Mexico. But I left there in 1969, so a long time ago.
When did you guys come to the States then?
We got here in 1969. I spent 1 year in Norwalk, California, before, in 1967, 68.
So did you guys come from Mexico straight to California then?
The first time that I came to California in 68 was when we came just with a permit, a student permit for 1 year, my brother and I. And we spent time with my grandmother and my uncles in Norwalk, California.
From Norwalk, where did you guys go?
I had to go back to Mexico and go back to school, and then we tried to get our green card.
So does that mean you're legal?
I'm definitely legal. I'm actually a naturalized American citizen now. So tell Trump he cannot send me back. At least not yet.
Not yet.
So it took us. One of the things that I wanted to share with you is how difficult it was, even back in those days, to get our documentation together so that they would give us the green card. It took us several trips. First we went to Tijuana, then we went to Guadalajara, then we went to the consulate in Mexico City. They had us jumping around like a ping pong ball. I mean, we were bouncing left and right. We used to spend almost the entire night in line to be, in the front of the line. We had to get there like 11 o'clock at night sometimes 12 at night. And we had to wait in line for hours just to submit it. Oh yeah, that was just not, and we had to do that several times, not just once. It took us several months in several cities. But finally, we got it done in 1969, and then that's when all of us came at the same time.
Were you kind of relieved when you guys got here, or were you sad to be?
Oh yeah, to me it was like a different planet. We're looking at the freeway, 3 or 4 lanes on the freeway. And I remember back in those days, even the freeway was very well kept. Yeah, right now we can use a little bit of help in maintaining the freeway. When we first got here, my stepfather and my mom were working for a Chinese guy. His name is Norman Mock. I still remember the address, 1363 Murphy Avenue. Which if you travel through there used to be nothing but orchards and greenhouses where a lot of the Asian people would cultivate flowers and sell them. And that's where we did most of the work. Owner of the ranch, he would allow us to stay in a house that my stepfather built, but we would stay there for free. But we would work for them, at a very cheap rate. He would only pay us $1 an hour.
So were you going to school then when you were still working at the orchard as well?
Yeah, I went to Piedmont. Back in those days, Piedmont being in the northwest side of town, I did not have nearly the Hispanic population that I used to have in LA, in Norwalk. And hardly anybody spoke Spanish. And back in those days, I was just barely picking up the language of English. So I felt a little out of place at Piedmont. I think that's one of the reasons why I decided to drop out. Plus the fact that we needed money, we needed cash, we needed to work.
How long were you guys at that orchard then?
We were there for maybe another 2 years or so. And we finally convinced my mom and my stepfather that we needed to get out of there and just look for a better future. We bought this house like in 1970. At one point, in this little tiny house, we had 11 people living in it. 11 people in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. I tell you, it was a great motivation for me to actually go out and buy a house all on my own, maybe about a year or two after we moved into this one.
So how old are you then?
I was like 19, 20 years old. That's when I started working on Memorex. Back in the early 60s, what you would call high tech was IBM, Memorex, Intel, Hewlett Packard. Those were the companies that were founded here in the valley, and that's what made this valley what it is now. That was the beginning of the high tech revolution.
How was this area around that time? What was it like?
Well, back in those days, it was a heck of a lot more peaceful. There was hardly any cars out in the streets. I remember even right here on Story and King, we did not even have any traffic lights. That's how low the traffic was. You'd see a car here and there, but now you travel through what this is considered, it's called the Tropicana area.
Mhm.
It was actually a low to moderate income residential area
Mhm.
that I think the state subsidized. This was back in the 1950s. It was mainly for minorities.
Mm.
So that, and I think that's one of the reasons why you see mainly, Hispanic people in the east side. I personally think that housing is one big issue. The fact that everything's so expensive around here. I feel sorry for the young people, like people your age, because even for me, when I was 17, 18, 19 years old, to buy a house, it was difficult, but it was doable for one person to do it. Now, I think it takes two or three. To me, the American dream is little by little dying off. We need to do something because not to get too political, but there's a big gap between the super rich and the middle class. Not even the poor. The middle class is just getting pushed farther and farther behind. I've always believed that we were in the best country, in the best state, in the best even county. Santa Clara has always been one of the best counties to live in. So I've always considered myself pretty fortunate to live in an area like this. It's got a lot of challenges, but it's got a lot of opportunity. And I think California sets the pace for the rest of the nation when it comes to being, innovative and full of ideas and progressive. I like California. I'm glad I came.
Okay, well, I think we're done then.
Thank you.
Thank
Good luck
you.
with your project.
Thank you.